Now, another subject that many of you email us on is, of course, the whole question of how and where we can use our cars and what restrictions are being put on us. And today's particular case study is South Fulham West in London, which is a clean air neighbourhood trial. Well, earlier on today, we sent Christina, one of our reporters, down to have a look at what this actually means in that part of Fulham and what the impact is, positive and negative, on communities and businesses.
Businesses in Fulham say they're losing out as customers face new fines. The Clean Air Neighbourhood scheme from Hammersmith and Fulham Council stops motorists who are not registered in the area from taking shortcuts on side streets, forcing them to stick to the main roads. 5 cameras have been placed to catch drivers breaking the rules, who now face fines of up to £130. But businesses here along New Kings Road say that they're the ones being affected. They say they weren't properly consulted before the new measures were put in place, and the threat of a hefty fine is stopping potential customers from coming to the high street and their shops.
The businesses have conducted an independent survey themselves, finding that 90% of the businesses are not for the scheme itself, as they're finding it has led to a reduction in their trade and business, and some of them who have been here for longer than we have, which is 10 years, are now looking at closing and moving and relocating to other areas.
There's also concern about whether the scheme even works, as many fear that the increased traffic on the high street is making the pollution worse.
We use very expensive fabric, so the whole thing is about keeping things clean in here, and we just get these particles of, black particles, more of them now. I mean, they've always been there, but now it's just really exacerbated. And this week it's school holiday, so the traffic is reduced, what you're seeing now, but often it's clogged up right from Wandsworth Bridge Road to the traffic lights at Parsons Green Lane, and that's traffic just sitting there.
Some residents have welcomed the cameras as fewer cars drive outside their homes. But earlier today, most people I spoke to were concerned about the effect it's having.
Particularly people who are elderly and who feel that they're really trapped. Nobody feels that they can just pop in anymore.
Hammersmith and Fulham Council started to roll out the new measures in December, but initially were just sending warnings to drivers. A spokesperson from the council said that residents and businesses tell them they're pleased that they're tackling the toxic air crisis after decades of pollution and congestion. They said they also support their vision to make the area a more attractive destination for shoppers and visitors. But with businesses suffering, many are hoping the council will rethink the plans. Christina Curtis for GB News.
Now, we've been debating the ULEZ extension. We're going to talk about this issue as well. Please don't think we're London obsessed. We're not, because Bath has a clean air zone, Birmingham has one, Bradford has one, Bristol has one, Portsmouth has one, Sheffield has one, Tyneside has one, and there are plans for Greater Manchester and all sorts of other cities around the UK, even talk of 15-minute cities in Canterbury, Oxford and elsewhere. But let's start with this one. Oliver Lord joins me, UK head of the Clean Cities campaign. Oliver, no one wants dirty cities, all right? Let's agree on that before we
totally with you on that,
do anything or go anywhere. But this is brutal, isn't it? I mean, 130 quid if you go off that main road through that part of Fulham. So you want to go and visit your auntie? Well, it's possible after the visit, if you fill something in online, that you might get the fine rescinded. But you are damaging those local businesses, those off-street local businesses, in quite a big way. Don't they matter?
Well, I've seen this before a little bit. I've seen businesses carrying coffins down the street, like literally, and then actually the street being revived, about a year later when everything beds in. But I actually, looking at the piece that you just gave us, I actually think things are getting quite complicated now for people. You're seeing local authorities bringing in lots of different schemes. And quite frankly, because they're trying to do something about the air pollution in the city, right? The fact that children's lungs are getting stunted, the fact that it's affecting people's health.
This is about anti-car fanaticism. I mean, and ULEZ extension is exactly the same argument. You're taking the ULEZ extension out to rural areas on the outskirts of London with no possible air benefit at all.
Well, we're talking about Hammersmith at the moment.
I know,
the fact that
yeah, OK, all right. No, fair enough. I'm talking generally about the approach to cars.
Well, I would say the approach to cars, there needs to be an approach to cars, because cars have ultimately started to overrun our lives, especially in urban areas. And we've been sold a bit of a fallacy, really. We've been sold a fallacy by the car industry. If you watch a car advert, you go to the cinema and watch it, it's like, where are all the other cars in the street when you're selling me this car? Quite frankly, there isn't enough space for all the cars we've got in our cities.
Well, there's the embankment over there.
Something different.
There's the embankment over there, you know, a really important route. 20-mile-an-hour limit, 24 hours a day. Insane, isn't it?
Well, 20 mile an hour is about actually reducing the risk of injury to children and adults. Absolutely.
You want us all wrapped up in cotton wool at home. You don't want us to go out, do you?
Come on. If you get hit by a car at 20 miles an hour compared to getting hit at 50 miles an hour, then the chance of, you know, keeping your life is so much significantly better.
This is a major thoroughfare road. It's not outside a primary school where I might buy the argument about collision speed. I mean, what I'm really getting to, Oliver, is, and I say, I mean, we're using London as a case for debate, because that's your sort of expertise, and we're sitting here, but this applies in much of the rest of the country. With the congestion shown, ULEZ extension, low traffic neighbourhoods, this clean air experiment, the complicated, quite right, as you said earlier, that's going on, I think we're getting pretty close to the truth of where we're going with this. Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, earlier on today, in an interview with the Financial Times, said road use charging is interesting. If you get rid of the congestion charge, get rid of ULEZ, get rid of road tax, and charge people depending on how many miles they drive, how polluting their vehicle is, what time of the day they're driving, their alternatives related to public transport, and how many people are in the car, that is potentially quite exciting. Well, if you want to live in a Chinese communist state, I suppose it's very exciting, isn't it? I mean, isn't this where we're going? Oh, come on, be honest about it. Ultimately, isn't this where we're going?
That's not surprising, those comments from the mayor. I mean, everyone in sort of the policy wonk sphere are talking about how do we improve things for people driving on the street, because that's kind of what this is about as well. It's about how do we actually charge people fairly for using vehicles, you know, depending on how polluting your vehicle is. If you want to go at peak time, you're going to spend a little bit more money. But actually, the poorer people in society, maybe going to visit their auntie, like you said, once a month, they might be better off as a result of doing a scheme like that, because you're actually balancing out the flat for your vehicle excise duty with actually a more variable
and with
charge.
cameras, you'll tell how many people are in the car. Will you monitor our conversations as well?
You don't necessarily need cameras. You can actually put some kit in the car itself.
I don't like
a lot
it.
Of insurance companies are doing
I
that
don't
now.
like it, Oliver. It's the big state. But hey, thank you for coming in and joining us in Healthy Debate.